It's time to spill the secrets to the Week 12 DFS slate. We got 5 sleepers to load up on in tournaments this week, as well as 3 unique draft angles to help you win the $40,000 top prize in the Week 12 Battle Royale contest on Underdog. And we also got a deep dive on stacking versus not stacking your quarterback, a pick'em entry, and a programming note for next week's Thanksgiving edition. So lots to cover today. I'm Pete Overzet. This is the Deposit Kingdom. Let's get to work. First up, we got a familiar face at quarterback. It is none other than Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith. He's home versus Arizona this week. He has an ADP of 35.1, which makes him the QB 11, and he has a $5,700 price tag on DraftKings, which is pretty nice as well. I really don't know what Geno has to do to get some respect around the Battle Royale streets, but we're going back to the Seahawks well again, and this might be the best setup he's had all year. It's a home matchup, the total is hovering around 50, and it's a matchup versus a Cardinals defense who ranks 29th in defense drop back success rate. The team has been chucking the ball nonstop too. Geno actually leads the league in passing yards. He's averaging 278.1 a game, and the Seahawks lead the league in pass plays per game at 37.4. And I understand that this is a loaded week at quarterback. There's lots of nice names at the top, so it's inevitable that some guys are going to get squeezed, but there are a few guys who have no business being selected ahead of Geno this week. And the other awesome thing about Geno is that it's pretty straightforward on how to play it. You can do skinny stacks with either DK Metcalf or Jackson Smith and Jigba. Both of those guys are getting drafted in the majority of contests. And you can also run him naked if you like. And speaking of which, in our Evergreen strategy piece later in this video, I'm going to do a deeper dive on why naked QB is underutilized in the big Battle Royale. Next up, we got running back, and we are going with Titans running back, Tony Pollard. They are at Houston this week. He has an ADP of 35.9, which makes him the running back 18. And he also has a decent tag on DraftKings at 5,800. And look, it's time to eat our vegetables, guys, with a classic volume play that no one wants to touch because of a toughish matchup, but we have to chase the touches here. Tajay Spears is still in the concussion protocol and looks unlikely to play this week after multiple DNPs. And Pollard's workload has been outrageous this year. Even with down games the past 2 weeks, he's still averaging 16 rushing attempts and 4 targets per game on the year. And if we look at the running backs on this slate who have played 8 or more games, Tony Pollard has the 6th best utilization score. That's a metric over at Fantasy Life that helps encapsulate the total workload a player has. And it's just way too good of a role for Pollard to be undrafted and 17 other running backs to consistently being going ahead of him. So plug your noses, take some Pollard at the end of drafts this week, and I'll have another running back idea for our bonus gem if you don't want to touch Pollard. And we'll also have a unique idea for how to play Pollard in drafts when we hop in some drafts later. Next up, we are headed to wide receiver. We're going with Indianapolis Colts wide receiver Josh Downs. They're home versus Detroit this week. He has an ADP of 34.8, which makes him the wide receiver 18, and he has a $6,200 price on DraftKings. I'll admit, I almost put Anthony Richardson as the quarterback gem. ETR actually has them as their quarterback 2 this week. And even though his ADP is currently 34.4 and would typically fall in that window that I like to select our gems, we know he's going to get steamed up because of this ranking, and he'll end up getting drafted in 50, 60, 70+% of drafts. It's very similar to what happened with our Bo Nix play last week. It's not that it's a bad play, but it just won't qualify for the sub 30% ownership threshold I like to aim for with these picks. But with that said, I still want to attack this spot, and we get a nice way to do it with Josh Downs, who will end up getting stacked with Richardson less than Sutton would have gotten stacked with Nix last week. And that was kind of one of my concerns with playing Nix, was just how popular Sutton was going to be with him. And there's a lot working in Downs' favor just by himself, right? He's clearly the top passing weapon for the Colts. And despite what the Jags made it seem like last week, the Lions are susceptible through the air. They've actually allowed the 8th biggest fantasy boost to opposing wide receivers. That's 4.2 extra points per game relative to league average. You can see that here via the Fantasy Life DVP tool. And it makes sense too, right? Like, teams are getting boat raced by the Lions and have to chuck it in garbage time a lot. And I think it's possible for Downs to do what Calvin Ridley did against them a few weeks back. He went 10 for 143 43 yards. And then you basically just pray that Downs binks a touchdown like he did versus the Jets last week. So I think you can stack Richardson with Downs. I'm not going to say that's bad, especially if I'm wrong and Anthony Richardson's ADP doesn't get too steamy. But I do actually like the idea of playing Downs away from Richardson, because you can then enjoy the matchup benefits and then not have the lineup tanked if Richardson doesn't find the end zone on the ground again. So that's a dynamic I want to be thinking about, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit more in our Evergreen strategy section about stacking quarterback. On to tight end. We're going to roll with Detroit Lions tight end Sam LaPorta here. He's at Indianapolis, the same game we were just talking about. He has an ADP of 35.3, which makes him the tight end 9, and he has a $4,300 price on DraftKings. And look, I get it. It's been a rough year for the first tight end we were all selecting off the board in best ball drafts, but this is the perfect spot to get even on Sam LaPorta with him going largely undrafted. And before missing week 11, he was enjoying a 3-game stretch where he was averaging 5 targets per game on a healthy 28% targets per route run, and he had 2 red zone targets during that span as well. All of those numbers represented a huge uptick from what was happening at the beginning of the season. And because he has the Q tag, there's going to be some hesitation here from the field to click him, but he was a full participant in practice on Wednesday and Thursday and should be a full go this week. But because he missed last week and because the Lions crush, he's going to be the odd man out as people chase the Lions box score from last week. And this is also a particularly great matchup for LaPorta. The Colts give up the second biggest fantasy boost to opposing tight ends behind only the Raiders, who got shredded by Geno last week. And I like the idea of LaPorta as a one-off tight end. You could also stack him with Goff, but as a one-off, you're getting really nice leverage on all of the other Lions pieces who will go 100% drafted. Let's get to our final bonus gem here. I promised a running back, and we are going with Buccaneers running back Bucky Irving. They're at the Giants this week. He has an ADP of 35.5. He's the running back 15 on Underdog, so actually going 3 running back spots ahead of Tony Pollard, and he has a $5,300 price tag on DraftKings. So my thought here with Bucky is this dude's a powder keg waiting to explode for a monster game, and I think you want to be early rather than late to this party. And we got to give Rachaad White his flowers. He's had some nice games over the past month. I've been hammering him in the pick'em streets over on his receptions, but those performances were largely driven by negative game scripts against top teams like the Niners, the Chiefs, the Ravens. But when we last saw Bucky before the bye, he turned 13 rush attempts and 3 targets into a touchdown, which made him the RB7 on the week. And now he gets a really juicy matchup versus a bad Giants run defense. And I think it sets up for a game script where the Bucs will lean into Bucky's efficiency over Rachaad White as they play foil to the Tommy DeVito party. So how to execute this? Take Bucky as a one-off running back at the end of your drafts. Or if you're doing small field contests, you could pair him with Baker Mayfield in a Bucs pass catcher, either Mike Evans or Cade Otton, as a way to capture a big Bucs outing. That's essentially what we saw hitting last week with Jared Goff, one of the running backs, one of the pass catchers. It's time to build a pick'em with all of these plays. And I will say right at the top, one of the, bad things about recording these early in the week is that a lot of the potential ways to attack these players in the pick'em lobby aren't posted yet. As the week progresses, we get fantasy points, we get attempts, we get targets, we get first downs. Like, there's a lot more in the menu. The menu's limited when I record these, so these are not the end all be all. I'm trying to point you in the right direction. I'm going to give you the 4 plays that I'm going to build a pick'em entry with, but I also want to go back and revisit these later in the week when more stuff is posted, and I'll try to give the exact ways that I would actually prefer to attack these if they were available. So this is what we have to work with right now. We're going with Geno, higher than 256.5 passing yards. I'll mention when I scripted this earlier this morning, it was at 253, and just in the span of a few hours, it had already gone up to 256.5. I envision we see this number continue to rise. They didn't have passing attempts or completions posted when I recorded this, but I'd be interested in those too. But I do really think Geno is going to clear this number fairly easily this week. For Pollard, we're going to take a touchdown here. We're getting plus odds on it. All they had was yards along with the touchdown in the lobby. I kind of want to steer away from, as far as for a pick'em, from the yardage and more bank the volume, because that's really the thesis here. Obviously, if Tony Pollard's winning us the Battle Royale, he's going to clear 50 plus rushing yards. But for this pick'em, we're going to go with the TD because it's only going to end up being a 4-leg entry, and getting those plus odds can help us out there. But feel free to swap it out to carries or attempts if that becomes available to you. For downs, this one I love. We got higher than 4.5 receptions. He's been over this in 3 straight weeks. We already just sold you on the matchup. And I think if you want to, you could slide this to 5.5 if you were feeling spicy on Josh Downs getting to, say, 6 or 7 receptions. Like I said, no LaPorta lines were in the lobby at the time of this recording. I would probably play him through a touchdown or yards if it were available, but nothing for us to work with right now. And for our last pick here, I really like this one as well. We're going with Bucky higher than 67.5 scrimmage yards. Bucky's so explosive in both the rushing and receiving game that I kind of want out to getting him there in both those directions. So I would say my 2 favorites of the ones I just mentioned are the Josh Downs, higher than 4.5 receptions, Bucky, higher than 67.5 scrimmage yards, and Geno higher than his passing yards. So you could put those 3 in a smaller entry. For this pick'em entry that I am going to share a link to down below, I'm including the Tony Pollard touchdown, but if you want to take that out, if you want to wait for attempts, I do not blame you. Just trying to give us some ideas here, but I will post the link down below if you want to tail this specific pick'em with me. And as I always mention during this section, make sure you take advantage of a freebie or a boost if you have it in the lobby. Underdog doles those out in different ways. So sometimes you might have one that I don't have. So I don't want to, specifically mention one if you guys don't have it, but always go and check. There's a little Christmas box. It looks like a present on your app. And if you click that, it'll show you if there's any promos available. So always make sure you're checking that before submitting a pick'em entry. And if you're new to Underdog, we still got that $1,000 deposit match when you use promo code Pete, and they'll also give you a pick'em special when you first sign up. So use promo code Pete if you guys want to join us in there. You can tail this entry and get up to $1,000 deposit match on your first deposit. Let's get into our Evergreen strategy section. And today I want to talk about stacking, because one of the bad habits I've had to work really hard to shake in Battle Royale drafts is an over-reliance on stacking. I'm a stacking slappy, guilty as charged. And this stacking brain comes from playing salary cap DFS. It comes from drafting thousands of best ball teams where correlating is nearly mandatory, right? Because we're dealing with larger rosters, salary cap DraftKings, that's 9 rosters. A best ball roster, that's 18 roster spots. And we need stacking to help us not need to get as many things right. But in Battle Royale, where only 6 players are drafted, that stacking can actually work against us, because take the large field BR contest, for instance, right? That has 40,000 plus entries this week. And if you're always stacking, it's going to reduce the ceiling of your lineups, where you essentially need to hit the nuts to win. And this basically played out in week 11. And Jameson Williams, I think, is a really good example. You would say, hey, Jameson Williams dropped 20. He was an awesome double stack partner with Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown. That was true in small field contests where you didn't need to have a perfect lineup to win, and you'll actually see him featured in the winning Deposit Kingdom lineup that we're going to take a look at in a second. But in the big Battle Royale, Jameson Williams was outscored by Cooper Kupp by 5 points. So to really have a chance at first, you needed to have both Amon-Ra St. Brown with Cooper Kupp and not Jameson Williams to have a chance at winning. And so one of the things that has really helped me correct my, stack slappiness has been the optimal stacking rates that Nerdy Tenor has been posting in the in-game syndicate Discord. If you guys aren't familiar with Nerdy Tenor, one of the best DFS players in the world, part of the in-game syndicate, along with Brick75, who I co-host Lulz with, Utical, one of the top DFS players. They started their own site, and Nerdy has basically been running sims for the large field BR contest each week, and then splicing the data to look at the optimal stacking rates and the optimal ways to use these quarterbacks. So you can see here, this is an example from last week. He posts the optimal stacking rates from his sims, and he's also posting the stacking rates for each individual quarterback. And what's fun at looking at these is some of these results track with intuitive logic, right? They make sense. In the case of Bo Nix, You know, you can see here he was optimal as a naked quarterback 66% of the time, which makes complete sense with his rushing ability, right? And his ability to kind of spread out the ball across that pass catching room. And that's why I was actually so nervous last week about overstacking him with Cortland Sutton. Not only was Cortland Sutton going to be drafted in 100% of contests, but the math says, you know, 2 out of every 3 of your Bo Nix lineups should be just Bo Nix naked. But that said, when I was looking through this data last week, others were more surprising to me, like Brock Purdy. Because if you would have asked me how often should I be stacking Brock Purdy, I would have said, I don't know, 95% of the time you would want a skinny or a double stack with Brock Purdy. But you can see in Nerdy Sims here from last week that nearly 1/3 of Purdy teams should be naked. And I'll tell you right now, without looking at data like this, I am not going to have a naked Purdy in 1 out of every 3 Purdy shares I take. Like, my default MO is going to be to stack him. So this data has helped me kind of push outside that comfort zone. And I actually ended up taking a naked Brock Purdy in the 3rd and long $20 3 max contest on Underdog last week after I got sniped on Jared Goff. I had a Gibbs and an Amon-Ra team. I wanted to tack on Goff to it. I wasn't able to get him, so I went with Brock Purdy, who slid to the last round. That team with naked Brock Purdy ended up finishing in 1st place in that contest. Now, I'll admit, Brock Purdy didn't win me this contest, but I mentioned this example because the old version of me would have looked at the rest of my lineup and tried to force some other kind of stack, right? Like, I would have never even considered Brock Purdy as an option on a team that didn't have any other Niners. So the TLDR here is, I know it's hard to shake stacking brain, but it's worth pushing outside your comfort zone in some of your lineups across your Battle Royale portfolio, because in the big field contest, it'll give you a shot at having a higher ceiling because you hit the one player or the one quarterback who goes for a ton of points without bringing along a pass catcher. You know, Anthony Richardson would have been a good example of that last week, Bo Nix to an extent as well. Or in the smaller field, right, you can just bank a high level of points. You actually don't have to take on the added risk of the correlation. You can just say, hey, the Niners and Brock Purdy have a 30-point team total. He's still here as my last round pick. Let me tack him on to an otherwise good team and not force a correlation where I'm actually sacrificing some points. So I should mention, if you guys would like to see nerdy sim data for the slate, I recommend subbing to the in-game syndicate and getting access to their Discord. It is a private Discord, and you can actually use promo code CADDY25 to get $25 off of both the Draft Caddy, which when you guys see me draft here in a second, you'll see those ownership projections that I often reference. That's included with the Caddy, as well as getting access to the entire in-game syndicate, their Discord, their library of videos, all of that good stuff. Highly recommend it if you're trying to play Battle Royale at a high level. All right, before we hop in some drafts, let's shout out the winner of the Deposit Kingdom Weekly League for week 11. Piri24 took it down, and this drafter had a really sick small field lineup that featured a Jared Goff triple stack. It had Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jameson Williams, along with Jared Goff, and then tacked on a Breece Hall and a Brock Bowers. So only 2 non-Lions pieces. And what's so funny about this lineup, and I think pairs really well with our conversation that we just had about stacking, is I think stacking is overutilized in the large field BR. We just talked about me, forcing stacks too often relative to those optimal rates. I think overstacking is likely underutilized in these smaller tournaments, right? It doesn't feel good to take 4 players from one team, but when it's a spot like the Lions had with a 30+ team total against a really bad matchup or a really bad defense, it's not hard to envision them all getting there. And that's exactly what happened. So really sharp lineup here for small field. Wouldn't recommend doing that in the big BR, but love it in these contests that, are smaller than say 2,000 entries. And if you guys would like to compete with us in the Deposit Kingdom Weekly Contest, we have the 3 Max Week 12 version going live Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. That goes live while we are on my live stream channel for Off and On the Clock with the Badge Bros. So if you're watching this later, that stream has already happened and the contest should be up, but you can always expect that contest to be live Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern. All right, it's time to draft. All right, hopped us in a week 12 Battle Royale contest. As I mentioned, very similar setup to previous weeks, 48,000 entries, $40,000 up top. And this first draft idea we're going to execute, I'm calling Geno Close. Geno Close. Geno, not Geno not wearing clothes. So we're going to do naked Geno Smith is what I'm trying to say here. This is kind of in theme with our section about trying to move out of our comfort zone with always stacking. Like I said, I'm not going to say anything bad about stacking Geno in DK Metcalf, Geno in JSN, but my hunch is that the optimal rate for unstacked Geno will come in significantly higher than the field uses unstacked Geno. And I still think there's a fun way we can do this, and that's pairing him with James Conner. So that's the other element of the Geno close is Smith plus James Conner. Obviously, for this to hit, we are going to need the Seahawks to be pushed, right? If they control this game, they're going to run it a lot with Kenneth Walker. We need a game script that plays into this. So we'll put James Conner in here. He has an ADP of 18.6, which might actually be a little tough if we have the pick at 18-19. Here's the thing, though. With these bringbacks, I don't mind some of the other options as well. Trey McBride would be an option for us, as well as Marvin Harrison, who I don't mind his matchup either. So the point of this is naked Geno Smith, where they get pushed, but we have a few different options that we can do here if we miss out on James Conner. So picking at the 6-7 turn, we know our quarterback is done, so I'm going to take tabs off of that. We got Tyreek Hill versus New England. We got Jahmyr Gibbs versus Indianapolis. We got Justin Jefferson here. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do, we can do Gibbs and Jefferson. Just play it straight down. I mean, Justin Jefferson has to have a big game at some point, right? Yeah, so we will see. But yeah, we'll start here with Gibbs and Jefferson, and then we'll see if we can get one of these main Cardinals pieces to come back to us, either James Conner or Trey McBride, and then we'll reserve our last pick for naked Geno Smith. You know, one of the other things I've been trying to think about, and I didn't mention his name in the section, is if I would do any Geno Smith with Tyler Lockett, right? Because generally that would be the play I'm kind of interested in. Like, okay, you're in on Geno, and JSN and DK Metcalf are getting drafted in 100% of drafts, and Tyler Lockett isn't. That's the leverage angle. The tough sell on that is that Lockett's essentially getting phased out of the offense right now. Over the past 3 weeks, he has a 10% target share. So I think it's just a little too thin. You know, if I'm doing a like really creative, scroll down play, I generally want it to either be a player who just has a ton of explosive ability in a good game environment, like Jameson Williams last week, or someone who's just getting a ton of volume. And I don't really think Tyler Lockett qualifies for either of those. So I'm probably not going to be doing any Geno to Tyler Lockett. I never like to, say definitively on a Thursday afternoon. That's where I'm at now. And that's why I do kind of gravitate to, hey, if you want to do Geno without, Metcalf or JSN, do it naked. And the old Peter would have been like, all right, I'm just going to jam Lockett. This is my leverage play. But it's like, if the projection isn't there, if it's not actually a good play, and you still want access to Geno in a creative way, well, then run him naked. So that is kind of how I'm approaching this. We're about to pick at the 3-4 turn. James Conner still on the board. Trey McBride actually already went. Okay. Oh, no. So this drafter went DK Metcalf and McBride. So hopefully they'll be on Kyler and not Geno. One of the themes of this video is me having my scroll down gems and then getting worried about getting sniped on them. All right, James Conner does come back. So this works out well. So we'll be done at running back here. It means we just need a wide receiver and a tight end. By ADP, we see Kittle here. I like Neighbors. I think this could be a good bounce back spot for him. Danny DeVito, Tommy DeVito, Jesus Christ, Danny DeVito, Malik Neighbors, and he slides past ADP here as well to pick 19. So here's our team so far. We got Gibbs and Conner, we got Justin Jefferson and Malik Neighbors. We'll be picking a tight end, and then we can roll with Geno as our final quarterback. And also, just because these, I'm recording on a Thursday, these drafts have actually been filling a little slower So I'm going to hop in our second one now just to make sure. Oh, it snap fills. This is always what happens, right? It snap fills. So we'll be juggling 2 drafts at once here. We still got a minute, so we'll make this pick and then we'll hop over and I will tell you the theme of our second draft here. So by ADP, we got Cade Otton. He'd be a nice little bring back on the side to Malik Neighbors, Geno Smith, who's been on fire and has another good matchup here. TJ Hawkinson, LaPorta. I think we're going to save LaPorta for another one of our ideas there. A little bit of a spoiler alert. So we'll see what comes back to us here. Let's see, what did the... Oh, wow. We have a double tight end in this room, man. I don't know about that. See, you see here already JSN getting pretty aggressively drafted. Cade Otton does go. So yeah, why don't we can do Janu and Geno. Or you know what? Let's we're gonna end up doing LaPorta in a different way than this one, but I don't mind this one. I do like LaPorta a lot this week. So let's get him in 2 different instances and we'll grab Geno. And then this is all set here. Geno Smith naked, Gibbs, Connor. So Connor has the little bring back, Jefferson, Malik Neighbors, and then another scroll down there at tight end with Sam LaPorta. All right, we're going to hop over to this second draft where we're on the clock. The theme of this one is called Hear Ye, Hear Ye, an homage to my Swolecast co-host, David Kitchen. This is going to be a team where we take both Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard. I'll explain it more after we make these picks here. Let's go ahead and take Amon-Ra here first at pick 5, and then we can potentially, I was going to consider Nico in that same game environment, but let's go ahead and we will grab, man, David Montgomery with an ADP of 10. I'm just seeing this right now. That is crazy. I'm sorry, but that is crazy. Let's go ahead and grab a tight end up here. Let's grab Kelsey. And then I'll talk a little bit about this pairing. So I already kind of talked about Pollard. I like the idea of how condensed this offense is. It really is the Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard show. Obviously, the Titans have struggled in previous weeks, but whenever you can get the entire offense, 10 plus targets from Ridley, 20 plus touches from Pollard, and they're both going undrafted for the most part, I really like leaning into that, because if we do get a spot where they overperform, where the Titans score, 25 plus points, there's a really good chance that both of these guys can score 20 plus points themselves. And in those scenarios, it's just a really nice leverage spot. You don't have to use the quarterback. We don't have to mess around with that. We just try to bank all of the Titans production through these 2 guys. So a little homage to David Kitchen. And again, you can use both of these guys as one-offs, but I thought it was fun here to have one team where we correlate both of them and essentially saying, what if people are wrong about the Titans? What if they hang here in this divisional matchup against the Texans, who, the Texans do have a decent run defense there. So, it could be tough sledding there. And while we'll have some, Ridley teams outside of Pollard, but I do like the idea of grabbing both of these guys on a similar team. And then we'll just have to figure out, who our quarterback and our other running back and wide receiver, or sorry, just running back will be, because I'm going to stop at 2 wide receivers here. I really like Jaden Daniels this week. Very happy to buy the dip on him. ADP of 12 and he slides to 17. So now we'll just grab one other running back here and we will we'll be good and off to the races. I honestly don't mind this running back quarterback pairing. I'm actually going to do that here. I'm going to grab Brian Robinson. The Commanders are 10-point home favorites versus a really bad Cowboys team. The Cowboys give up the 4th largest fantasy boost to opposing quarterbacks. They give up the 4th largest fantasy boost to opposing running backs. I'm ready to buy the dip on the Commanders in this spot. I know people are worried about the injury. The team tells us he's healthy. I think we're going to see him run more. I think we're going to see more big plays. I think we're going to see Brian Robinson have lots of cracks at the goal line. So we've seen in lots of these weeks, right? We've seen the Barkley and Hurts. We've seen the Lamar and Derrick Henry. I think this sets up as an awesome Jaden Daniels, Brian Robinson week. I will have plenty of them separated from each other. But if a room gives it to me at a discount like they did here, Jaden 5 picks past ADP, and then I get to get Robinson at ADP, very happy to do that. I'm going to hop us in our third and final draft as we get ready to make our Titans selections. And we will see if anyone surprises us by sniping our Titans here. I do not think Crash Rich, is Crash Rich probably autoing these right now? So this team will end up being Jaden Daniels, Brian Robinson, one off Amon-Ra St. Brown, one off Travis Kelce. I also, I thought about taking Nico ahead of Amon-Ra. I try not to force the correlations, but I would have been perfectly fine as Nico as part of this, where you're just playing this game to shoot out. But we can play it just through the Titans here in this Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley stack. All right, we lock that up. There we go. Here's the final team: Jaden Daniels, Brian Robinson, Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Travis Kelce. Like that team a good bit. And now we're going to hop in our third and final draft today. And this one, we are going to call the Covert Mini. So a Covert Mini correlation. We're going to do Sam LaPorta and Josh Downs. And, I'm calling it the Covert Mini here because I think most teams that are going to be playing this game are going to be using all of the other pieces, right? They're going to use naked Anthony Richardson. They're going to have Amon-Ra. They're going to have Gibbs. They're going to have Montgomery. They're going to have Jameson Williams. They're going to have Amon-Ra. So I think these are the two players from this game that are the best plays of the ones that are going overlooked. If we look at the Detroit ADPs here, Amon-Ra ADP 3.5, Gibbs 5.3, Montgomery 10.6, Goff 31.3, Jameson Williams 34.1. And I actually expect that Jameson Williams ADP to come up a little bit as well. And then we look at the Colts. Jonathan Taylor, 31.4. Anthony Richardson, we already mentioned his ADP is going to be on the rise after people get a hold of these ETR ranks. And then Josh Downs at 34.9. So Downs at 34.9, LaPorta at 35.2 gives us smart access to this game. Both of these guys have good matchups individually. And then they're also getting undrafted at a pretty high clip relative to their teammates in this game environment. So love the Covert Mini, sneaky way to access a really good game environment. And this means we will be probably looking for one running back with these first couple of picks. Happy to take Joe Mixon here. I mean, just talk about a monster workload. Look at this, Crash Rich not autoing, actually making these picks here. Goes Nico again. Let's see here. Let's go ahead. We did Jefferson last time. We could also grab our second running back. You know what? Let's do this. Let's grab Kenneth Walker because, we played the Geno stuff. I love the Geno stuff, but there are plenty of scenarios where Seattle controls this game. Ken Walker rips off a big play early, then they use him a lot in the second half. So we'll play this team as a little mini hedge on that big stand. We'll go Joe Mixon, Kenneth Walker, which is kind of funny, right? Too, because if Joe Mixon has a massive game, it probably means that Ridley and Tony Pollard mini isn't hitting either, just because it's slowing the game down. They're not having a ton of success. So this is our hedge on those first two lineups. We grab Joe Mixon and Kenneth Walker. And then basically what we're going to need to figure out is a stack as far as our other quarterback and wide receiver. Because then our last two picks are going to be Josh Downs and Sam LaPorta. I will happily take Jaden Daniels again if the room wants to give him to me at pick 17. Otherwise, we could do like Naked Kyler, kind of like that, play the inverse of what we did with Geno and James Conner. Play Kyler with Kenneth Walker naked, or with Marvin Harrison. I don't mind that at all. But I am going to take Jaden Daniels if no one takes him. Here they go. Wow, no one wants Jaden Daniels this week. Is this ADP going to slide? This is back-to-back rooms now. We'll see if my guy TM Longacre here, always in my best ball drafts, active member of the Deposit Kingdom community. No, he goes Mike Evans. All right, here we go. Sorry, guys. I'm not passing up on Jaden Daniels again. So we just got one other wide receiver selection to choose from here. Could have some fun with this one. Maybe we do Marvin Harrison still. We did Malik Neighbors before. Don't have a ton of interest in. I guess we could do CD. We could do CD opposite Jaden Daniels. He did have a ton of targets last week, 12 targets. And I think, if Jaden Daniels, if they're really going nutty in this game, getting pushed the whole way as 10-point favorites, the Cowboys are scoring some kind of points. So we'll play that little oppo, Jaden Daniels naked, CeeDee Lamb. And then this team should draft itself with our Covert mini here of Josh Downs and Sam LaPorta. Right when we finish up this draft, I do have that programming note for you guys as far as what the schedule is going to be for this video next week. So stay tuned in a couple minutes for that announcement. Otherwise, I don't, I try to, I know most of the people who watch these videos are also subscribed to my live stream channel, but if for some reason you're finding this because of the algorithm, I do these weekly underdog videos here, but over on the Pete Overzet live stream channel, I have 4 other streams I do a week. I have the portfolio review show on Mondays, which is a recap of all the previous week's DFS action. I have on Thursdays, Lulz with Brian Hooper, who I mentioned before from the In-Game Syndicate, more of kind of an inside baseball industry show. We had Pat Mayo on this week, if you want to check that out. And then on Fridays, I do 2 shows, Block Party, which is a DraftKings salary cap show with JM to Win from 1 week season. And then we do Off and On the Clock with the Badge Bros, which is an underdog show recorded live on Fridays. So those are the 4 free shows available on that channel. And then there's the aforementioned, there's the 2 premium shows, which I'm going to mention here in a second as well. We do get Josh Downs, and you can see right here, Anthony Richardson going. He will start to get selected a lot. Ooh, and Crash Rich takes Tony Pollard. Did Crash Rich already watch this video before it was released? Maybe. But this team is already done. Jaden Daniels, Joe Mixon, Kenneth Walker, CeeDee Lamb, Josh Downs, and Sam LaPorta. Before we head out, I mentioned at the top we have one housekeeping announcement for next week. So a week from yesterday, Thursday, is Thanksgiving. And Thursday is when I work on these videos. I hand it off to the editor who works on it Thursday evening, Friday morning, so we can get it out by Friday afternoon. Because of Thanksgiving, we're just not going to have the time to be able to pull off one of these videos for next week. So that's a bummer. It is what it is. But I don't want to leave the people completely hanging. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a special live stream for YouTube members on the Pete Overzet YouTube channel. I'm going to do that Friday, probably roughly 11 or 11:30 a.m. Eastern. This will be the day after Thanksgiving. It's not going to be an edited video. It'll be a stream. It'll be very similar format to these videos, though. I'll go through my favorite gems at each position. I'll share some draft ideas. I'll take a few questions from the chat as well. But yeah, I heard some people joking that, the picks had been really good. They were wondering if I would paywall them. Well, guess what? I'm going to paywall them for 1 week this week because we're not going to have time to make a video. So if you want access to that stream to get my BR picks for week, what will that be? Week 13, you can become a YouTube member on the Pete Overzet live stream channel. I have a link down below to that. The beauty about that membership is it gets you 2 extra premium shows a week. I do DFS After Dark on Saturday nights. I'm actually having John Boy Beats on the show this Saturday night. Really sharp, successful underdog drafter. He won $100,000 in a best ball contest last year and routinely crushes in the Underdog Daily Street. So we'll have a fun combo with him. And then you also get the cram that I do every Sunday morning. We talk final draft strategy. We talk a lot of DraftKings strategy as well, build some pick'ems, draft some teams, react to all of the overnight news and the inactive. So for next week, if you become a YouTube member at the highest level, that's the Hand Builder and Opto Bros tier, you will essentially get 3 shows for that price. So you'll get the cram, you'll get the DFS After Dark, and you'll get the special Battle Royale gems live stream that I'll be doing in lieu of one of these videos. All right, that's it for me. We'll see you back here in week 14. Wow, that'll be the next time we see you guys on this channel. But leave in the comments down below. Always love hearing who is your guys' gem for week 12. Good luck this week.